You bet.
Yeah.
I have like 3
Yeah.
meeting invites on my calendar. Sorry. do the overnight shift and then come to work all day. And but then he eventually just gave up and thought, this is what I mean. Now he's a female. He's still passionate about it. So, you know, well, yeah, right.
For as long as there's
Yeah.
one of our top careers guys. Sign one of our SELs got reassigned to do that, like the first week of administration. Like,
Is everybody, thanks all for being here. We can go ahead and take the meeting live. Start when you're ready.
It should be good, and just so you know, Jesse and Praveen are on their way.
Very good. All right, well, I'll go ahead and call to order the May meeting of the Alexandria Transit Company Board of Directors. Thank you all. Thank you to those in the audience for joining us tonight. I'll ask our clerk to call the roll.
Chair Kaplan,
Here.
Vice Chair Kleist, Harish.
Yeah, this is Steve Kleist. I was intending on planning on attending the meeting tonight, but a business matter has just come to my attention that I need to address. So my apologies to the board and to you, Mr. Chairman. I'll send you a message tonight to let you know what the underlying issue is, but I apologize that I won't be able to attend tonight.
Okay, that's quite all right. Steve, would love to know if you'll be here in June, though.
I'll let you know, but
Okay.
thank you.
Harish Gudger,
Here.
Matt Harris,
Present.
Praveen Kapko, Jesse O'Connell,
Here,
Hillary. Here. Is that Jesse?
Yeah, he's on Zoom. until he gets here.
Hillary Orr. Here. Kirsten Phelps.
here.
Laura Gates.
Here.
Jasha Thomas.
Present.
Arthur Wicks. Chair Kaplan, you have a quorum. The following members are absent. Vice Chair Kleist, Praveen Kapko, Arthur Wicks.
Thank you. We have next on our agenda a public hearing on the FY26 budget. I'll just ask staff, do you have any remarks that you want to make before we launch into speakers? So this is the second part. We had last meeting a hearing on the Housing Transit Strategic Plan, and so now we have a hearing on the budget now that we have clarity from City Council as to the action they took. For those in the audience or on Zoom who wish to speak, we have a public comment period policy. We have one public comment period, so in meetings where we have a hearing, our general public comment is rolled into that. So if anyone was here to speak during our regular open mic, you would do so now. And I'm going to read just a modified version of the statement that we read at the beginning of each public comment period. And it goes, we are about to convene into a public hearing. All dashboard meetings include either a public comment period or a public hearing at the beginning of the meeting. We believe it is crucial for us to hear from our riders and community members. The board is here to listen. However, please keep in mind that a public comment period is not designed to be a discussion. Accordingly, please do not expect the board to respond to your concerns or questions tonight. We take any concerns and questions seriously and need sufficient time to process and research any issues if need be. Board members will respond to your questions and concerns at a future meeting or have the proper staff member get back to you at the appropriate time. Please note that personnel matters are not a part of a public comment or public hearing. However, please know that we take any personnel questions seriously, and you are asked to contact the Dash administration with any such concerns. We ask that speakers and members of the audience maintain civility and respect for any divergent views that others possess. Further, we ask that speakers please address their comments to the board directly rather than the audience. The board will take pre-registered speakers first, and I will invite others who wish to speak who may not have pre-registered. For future meetings, you may pre-register on the website dashbus.com on the Board of Directors page. I will now call the first speaker. Each speaker is allotted 3 minutes for your comments. And if you're speaking on behalf of a neighborhood civic association or unit owners association, please identify yourself at the beginning of your comments and you may be recognized for up to 5 minutes. So I'll ask if we have any speakers who have pre-registered.
Dr. Ahmed.
All right, sir. You can come to the podium if you'd like.
good evening, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. The first comment is praising and commending the drivers of Dash. I am a new user of Dash. I have been here for 42 years in my neighborhood here in hometown. I live under the bridge. It's amazing how they maneuver the small streets and how polite they are. They're so considerate. And these guys are class A, unbelievable. So I would like the record to reflect that you have the greatest drivers ever. Actually, they have been maneuvering to the point where I see some morons, some stupid people just blocking them, and they still go, turn around on King Street, no damage done. I said, whoa, what a great driver. The second thing is that I have no idea if you have done any study, feasibility study, regarding the peak time, slow time. I'm making this comment because now I'm a really, I love Dash, especially because it's free. Every time I see that I can go somewhere without driving, I say, wow, take Dash. So I noticed that one from here, because I live down the street all the way down. So I take the bus from here, I go to the gym, One Life, Madison, and I was the only person.
30
And I say to the
seconds
driver,
remaining.
oh, you're my Uber. So it's kind of amazing how a whole big bus like this, and I'm by myself. So another time, so I started regularly saying, wait a minute, I can go to Potomac Yard, I can go to Nova, I can go to this, almost Skyline, doesn't go Skyline, but there's another gym there. So I took the bus. I noticed that certain times they are empty almost. Another time.
Your time
like-
is up. Please finish your comments.
Last sentence, Bob, you want to express?
The other thing is that if you can announce for people, because many people are stupid, they try to fight to go from the front door. And I've seen this big guy trying to go from the front door and disabled lady with a cane, and he still did not give her a chance and just go down. So if you make some of the announcement like stop, blah, 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 or this kind of thing, if you can make an announcement, on board or verbal announcement saying, hey, anybody going from the back, go back. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just out of curiosity, I'm guessing line 34 is your primary route based on? Or what do you?
30, 31, 34.
Okay.
I mean, it depends on where I want to go.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
Got it.
it's for free, so I like to try everyone.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you for coming. Our next speaker?
So I have another comment, so hey, you know what? There's another one very important.
I'll give you
Excuse
30
me.
seconds.
Okay, 30 seconds. You, with your influence and your power in the city, please do something about King Street. Every time I go on the bus, King Street, the bus is falling apart. Boom, 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 boom. So tell them pave the street. Okay, that's very important. So I don't know what power you have with the city. I talk to everybody, 311, everybody, but I think instead of paving side streets, my street has been paving twice. I don't know, maybe because I live there, So that's great. I think,
We do have TNS, a deputy director of TNS who may not be over paving specifically, but is that your?
It's not under
Oh,
my
okay.
purview, but
But-
there are portions of King Street that are on the schedule.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Phil. All right, we now will ask if there's anyone who didn't pre-register in the audience who would like to be recognized. And if not, then we will pause and ask anyone on Zoom who wants to be recognized to please use the raise hand feature.
The only attendees on Zoom are Dash staff members.
All right, then we will go ahead and close the public hearing. Thank you, sir, for your comments tonight.
Thank you.
We'll move into the chair's report, and I want to note that we have a new face who's sitting around the table. Laura Gates, welcome. I don't think you and I have met before, but I know that you've been with the city for a long time, and we welcome you to the board.
Thank you.
We'd love for you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your career here at the city, your interest in Dash.
Sure. So I'm Laura Gates. I serve as the Deputy Director for Finance with the City of Alexandria. So I've been in that role only about a year. But before that was with the city in the library system. So sort of another service arm of the city. I am an Alexandria resident. I'm a Dash bus rider. So I commute probably half time using Dash bus. History, I have sort of professional history, both in public and private sector. So started out as a budget analyst in Montgomery County, have worked, in software services, sort of all in the financial role, but that's my background. So glad to be here.
Welcome you to the board.
Yeah, thank you.
We typically annually, those who've been around a while know we do an icebreaker exercise, and it kind of varies in terms of what we do. So I'm hoping to do that in June. I've talked with Josh in terms of the length of the agenda, so there'll be a way for us all to get to know each other. There'll be a prompt, and then transit related, then it'll give us a chance to each talk about a little bit about, you know, ourselves and some relationship to the city and transit, and you know, we'll all get to know a little more about it.
Excellent. I appreciate it. Thank
Yeah.
you. I'm glad to be here.
We now, and just other elsewhere in my report before we move into I'll recognize the nominating committee, but I did want to, and Josh may be a little too modest to mention this, but he shared with me that the mayor, after the budget process, sent an email to him recognizing him for some of the contributions that he'd made in terms of helping to shape the budget, and a lot of his team who attended the work sessions where Dash was required and then responded to multiple budget questions. And so I really appreciated seeing that our mayor, on behalf of the council, was recognizing our department, you know, our general manager and CEO, and hopefully other department heads within the city, for a lot of work that they do to help to create that budget. And we'll hear more about the outcome of the city budget. We had quite a good year here at Dash, so I'm very pleased with that. And with that, I'll recognize the nominating committee. So Hillary and Harish comprise the nominating committee. They will present the slate of officers.
Yep, I can go. Go
for it.
Okay. So, yeah, the slate of officers that you guys have on your agendas. Hillary and I, as you know, sent out a solicitation asking for nominees, and we, received one for chair, David. And then we had 3 nominees for vice chair. We had to choose among, we've nominated Jesse for that position. And then, as you all know from the bylaws, the president is automatically the APC CEO, Josh. And then typically the T&ES director, who's Hillary, would be the vice president. Beth would typically be the secretary. Ed or somebody else from the finance team would typically be treasurer. And of course, you all know that we went through the process of selecting a new general counsel earlier this year, who's Mary Gail Holden. So that's the list of officers that we've put forth, and let me know if you have any questions.
Well, I thank you both for your work doing this. For those who are newer, each year after the stockholders meeting, which was held in March, our bylaws require that we elect officers of the board and the corporation. So we go through this exercise once a year. Steve was our vice chair. I don't know if he's still online with us. He's dropped off. Okay. Steve was our vice chair for many years. So the nominating committee had a task of having to then identify, as Steve is leaving the board at the end of June. So of identifying a new vice chair. So thank you so much for doing that. I think it would be appropriate if you wanted to call whether there are any other nominations for any of the officer positions, and then we can vote on the slate as presented.
Any other nominations?
Is there a motion to adopt the slate of officers presented by the nominating committee? Someone moved by Manis, or second? Second person, all in favor? Aye. Well, congratulations to new vice chair.
Thank you. I was listening. It turns out the meeting's not at Business Center Drive tonight, which I would have known if I actually. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mhm, yeah.
And I work in this building,
Yeah,
so.
right.
Oh, you made it back to the before I started.
Oh, you.
I wasn't gonna tell them where you were.
I gotta own it, especially walking in at that exact moment. Yeah.
Now you have to give a speech.
Yeah. Oh, do I? Be fine. All right. Yes. Here in sickness and in health, till buses do us part. I accept.
Well, I was gonna say, Jesse, I was pleased when I saw that you'll be were nominated as the vice
Thank you.
chair. I have deep respect for you. You have a lot of tremendous knowledge of the city that you freely in your free time write about speaking to many of us, and I learn a lot from every issue
Good.
that you send out. And
Well,
so I
thank you.
look forward to having you as part of this, and I appreciate your willingness to serve.
Thank you.
I asked Steve if he would be here in June because we do have some gifts for Steve that we'd like to present to him in person. We actually bought them today in case he was here today, but then not in June. So I hope that Steve will come in June. Otherwise, we'll make an appropriate presentation to him. But for those who hadn't heard, Steve is moving out of the area after he retires from federal service. He's moving to Texas, where I believe his daughter lives, and he has grandkids.
Okay.
So there's a lot of attraction there. But we will greatly miss Steve, and I hope he will be here so we can say goodbye to him, because he's been on the board over a decade. Search recognition. I'll recognize Hillary from the team report.
Just checking with Josh to see if this was Steve's.
No. Yeah, we had the digital version last time. I think now that this is,
We'll Photoshop Steve's picture in place of me.
that's right.
Well, thank you and good evening, everyone. So my notes were in the packet, just a couple of quick highlights and then feel free to ask questions. As I think you'll start to see throughout these meetings, we're trying to report back on some of the improvements that we're doing at bus stops to make them ADA compliant. And just a lot of bigger bus pads. We've got a order of benches that we've placed, and we've placed an order for a number of shelters. So we'll keep you all updated on that, but we are also hoping to launch soon our bus stop dashboard. So you'll be able to go online and visualize where all this stuff is happening. So our transit planner, Silas Sullivan, has put a lot of work into this. Let's see, what else do we want to highlight? I want to highlight that the NBTA launched their BRT action plan. I'm not sure if you all saw this. I might have forwarded it out, but hopefully you clicked on the link in my notes. They have a plan out, and I believe they're still taking public comment on that plan, where they have provided a regional BRT plan. We met with them this week to provide some Alexandria comments and are working on some of those. It's very high level, but if you go into the site, there's an interactive map, which I think is much more useful than the kind of static PDF that they've also put out, because you can more easily see each route is a color for the route, but then behind it is whether it's dedicated transit lanes, enhanced transit. They have 4 different categories. I think it's worth diving into. There's some changes proposed in Alexandria. These would obviously have to be studied. There's a new route that is proposed coming kind of across the Woodrow Wilson Bridge into Alexandria. And I think a big part of this is really to lay this foundation so that as jurisdictions are looking for funding, we have this as a resource and a guide to further cement some of the BRT planning that we and jurisdictions have already done. Obviously in Alexandria, we have our existing 3 transit corridors, but there are some modifications, some upgrades, and those are continual works in progress as we work to get right away and enhance those corridors. I also listed in my notes a number of grants that I think Martin's probably going to get into some of them, but we ask you all to approve grant applications as they come through. And so we just want to make sure that when we are awarded those grants, that you all have an opportunity to see that. I just updated today we have a grant dashboard for transportation grants, and we put the DRPT grants from Dash in there as well. So that's on the city's website. But you can go in and see how we do. You can filter by transit to see what types of grants we're applying for with transit and how much money we're getting each year. So all kinds of filters to play around in that dashboard. But I think that the big ones here are really the deck replacement grant, merit grant from DRPT, and then the 2 that the citywide bus bulb grant that it's out years, it's fiscal year 31 money, but it's $3.5 million for the city to start building out some of these bus bulbs, where we're trying to get temporary bus bulbs in as we do street redesigns. This would need to fully design and construct some of those. And of course, I'm very excited about our transportation digital model that we are working on with Virginia Tech. Happy to answer any questions about any of the items.
I had one, I actually had a comment and a question. One is, thank you again on the bus stop improvements. It's always great to see that you've gotten to removing parking at a bus stop I use frequently on North Fairfax Street, and I sent Silas a comment as per the sign that was posted that you were accepting comments on that. So I was very excited to see that and wanted to make sure I read in to support that. I did look at the NVTA BRT map. I only looked at the PDF. I didn't get to the interactive map, so this might answer a question. But one thing I noticed is that with some of the routes, it's hard to visualize because you just had the BRT and not then what would survive of the kind of existing Metro bus routes. But looking at some of the routes, if they become the BRT, at least the way they are on the map, they would require transfers, whereas today they wouldn't. An example of that would be, the Duke Street Transitway then runs to Landmark, but then there's, I think they have it marked as line 12 that becomes the Little River Turnpike, but it sort of starts at Landmark, whereas today you have a 29 bus that runs kind of all the way to Fairfax City. And just wondering if, the city, and maybe they addressed it in this comment, would be looking at kind of integrating that service in the long term, and any others where, there's service that's continuous today, but then would be broken up because they're different routes that might be funded at different.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I mean, as you all see with Dash, we're continuing to look at systems and how we can improve coordination, and WMATA is launching their new better bus network. So it's an ongoing process. And I think if Fairfax County decides to implement more, dedicated lanes and more enhanced transit service, we're absolutely gonna coordinate on what that looks like. And, I mean, obviously it goes all the way through Duke Street, so there's a lot of opportunity there.
All right, thank you, Lori. We always have a time in the meeting agenda for other board members to bring announcements. Many of you serve on boards, commissions, and community groups, where there may be information beneficial for the group as a whole. Is there anyone who would like to report? You're smart. Oh, yes, for me.
Yeah, I wanted to say that, I went to the Eco City Festival over the weekend. Saw some of you there. The Dash team was well represented. There was a big bus. My kids really enjoyed counting how many seats were on the articulated bus.
How many seats are?
The electric
one bus?
Yes.
Okay.
Was it an electric one, right? Okay. I think they counted 120 seats. Is that? Okay. 120, yeah. And then when one of them was kind of worn out, he took his book and wanted to sit on the Dash bus and just read in one of the seats on the Dash bus. So anyway, very nicely done, Josh and team. Great presence and visibility in the community. One of many high visibility things that you've done recently.
Thank you for having.
I just like in his comments, good job. Got a hat too for my husband. Thank you that you guys are selling items and a baby, like what do you go, onesie for a friend that's had a baby. So I appreciate the team being out there. And yeah, it was cool. So we sponsored the EV Sundays.
Also very much appreciate the new branding stickers. Very popular in the house. So,
They put them on mine.
Oh, yeah, those are the old ones.
To have that one too.
Move into our regular business items,
I have
which is
some
consideration of approval of the meeting minutes. The April minutes were included in the packet. Are there any revisions to the minutes as they were presented? If not, is there a motion to adopt them? So moved by Matt, is there a second? Second to Reach, all in favor? Aye.
I'll just note to abstain since I was not present.
Laura abstains.
Thank you.
Got that. All right, we will now recognize Josh and team for the financial items.
Yes, well, Edward is on the Zoom. If you have any questions about the financials that would have been included in your packet. He's actually returning next week. We get to see him in person again, but we thank him for jumping online to be available to you all if you have any questions regarding the financials. We are nearing our year-end process, which will get very busy reconciling some closeouts, but no action is required by the board at this point.
Any questions for Josh? We look forward to seeing you in June.
Thank you.
All right, general manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My report will be brief, and then I'm going to bring my team up to talk to you about a number of great updates that we have. The first update, though, that I have is regarding the FY26 general manager's revised budget. It is provided in the board packet with the comparison, and my apologies if you kept getting some random reminders from Boardable about a task. You're not the only ones learning the platform. We put a note in that we had to get that for, that was requested at the last meeting by Praveen, but there is a narrative in there that explains the variances from the originally submitted budget and the balancing. Also, it now also includes the enhancement for, that was funded by city council, that Martin will be talking about here shortly, regarding, with the ATSB. My slides actually might confuse you a little bit on the screen, which you can see if you look at the documents area boardable, but, put these in here because hats off to the team that has been working to install the passenger information displays. You may recall that these are funded by an FY 2025 DRPT demonstration grant. There are signs on 10 buses, and 2 of those buses are the brand new ones that we'll be doing the ribbon cutting on later this month. They're really great signs. They have a lot of great information and opportunity to display notices about Dash, the area that the bus is in, as well as you can see the progress along the route, which we're hopeful will get great responses. Some more pictures here just kind of show you how they move linear, help passengers to understand where they're going to be going. If you're nerdy like me and you want to know which buses you got to catch to see them, they're all 508 to 514, 703, and 905 to 906. 508 to 514 were funded by the grant. 703 was provided free of charge, and 905 and 906 were part of the purchase of the vehicle. So we're hopeful to continue to move this program forward as we replace vehicles. I think that's really the best opportunity to continue to implement this kind of technology, which we know from hearing from passengers, passenger information is really important. For example, at bus stops, signage about when the bus is arriving, when you're on the bus, understanding connections, transfers, and helping you get around the city more easily is really important.
Are 900s the articulated buses?
Yes, yes. So yeah, 90, anything with a 900 is going to be a 60-foot articulated bus, yeah. The other update is NVTC community outreach information was provided in your packet. I want to give credit to the team that I did not assemble this summary for you, but Camilla is going to join us here in a few minutes to provide some presentations, and we had really great outreach response regarding the NVTC Commuter Choice Program funding. So there's some information there in your packet of the outreach and what we heard and the effects of that. So hopefully that's helpful for you to kind of understand where we are on that. We are in good shape. Laura, for you, since you're new, the NVTC Commuter Choice Program is the I-395 funded service improvements along the I-395 corridor that comes from toll road revenues. The state carves out a chunk of that money, and then we apply every 2 years for grants. And those grants are substantial for us, in the tune of $11–12 million every 2 years, funding line 35, primarily service improvements. So that's where we get a lot of that great density and frequency on the west end, and it is our highest ridership route. There are other transit programs that apply, and we have to reapply. So I will just remind the board that funding is always at risk. It is a grant funding. We score very highly, and it's a really great program, and it's really important. And I think we'll continue to be competitive in it. But in the future, if we were to lose that money, we would either have to scale back line 35 service substantially, or find alternative funding sources to bridge that gap. So it's just important to keep that. And as you talk to, folks in the community and any constituents that you might be engaging with, it's important to remind them of how beneficial that program is to us and what it's doing. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Martin, and then I think it's going to go to Camilla. I'm going to let them provide some great updates to you all and some summaries of information that they've been presenting.
Thank you, Josh. Good evening, everyone. A couple items here to report on. First is our monthly ridership update. We have provided information for March, 391,000 boardings. I would caution that this is under review right now. We may be missing some data from late February and early March. So we're working with our vendor Hop Through, which allows us to take the automated passenger counter data and apply it to our schedule. So we get this data. There's a challenge with our database that we're working through. So we suspect due to the missing trips that we will recover later that will go up, but that's our number right now. So just wouldn't read too much into it at this point, but that is there.
I'm sorry, Martin, that only affects March, so it's not like an issue preceding Many more months.
I think April should be good.
Okay,
Mostly.
and nothing before that.
Well, there was like 2 or 3 days in the end of February, so we had a big change in February 23rd, or a few days after. So the February numbers were a little lower, you can see there. We had thought it was because there was a leap year the previous year, and there's winter weather. It may also have been driven with that. So
Okay,
thank you.
thanks.
So as requested, we are continuing to monitor ridership trends related to the return to office order in federal government. We brought April, this is April ridership data, so we're having a higher degree of confidence in it. It's April 2023, April 2024, and April 2025 data. So you can see that for lines 102, 103, 104, those are primarily our commuter routes. You can see that all 3 of them are above what they've done in the last 3 years. The biggest increase coming in line 103, which is up 59, almost 60% versus last year. So a lot of growth on 103, which is goes through Park Fairfax and Northridge in that area, as well as our Alexandria as well. Yes.
Even with that 59% increase, is sort of buses still within where we want to see, or is there overcrowding on these buses? Because it could be going from like 2 people to 20 people or whatever, yeah.
Right, so this is still, it's not creating crowd issues.
Okay, good. All right.
We're still a little below where we were before the pandemic on these routes, however, they're only running every 30 minutes, whereas we're running every 20 minutes.
Okay.
And then also line 35 also runs up to the Pentagon, so including that analysis as well, you can see it's going up a little bit, especially compared to last year, but not as much as some of the other commuter routes. Next item is, as Larry mentioned, we had a very successful grant campaign for FY26. We obviously had come to this group back in December, November to approve resolutions and support for these. And now we found out that we are getting all 4 of these included in the state's 6-year improvement plan. So we're excited to report that totals up to about $8.5 million in grant funding from the state across VDOT and DRPT. And then I've also included once Hillary kind of talked about some of this as well. So I'll just keep going unless there are any questions about the DASH projects.
Can I ask a question?
Well, we don't typically recognize audience members.
It's
after
very
the
good,
public
man,
comment,
very
but-
good. Okay, but when you mentioned something about fleet replacement, okay, is there any way to take into consideration smaller buses to fit in the city? I
can answer briefly. I'm going to suggest if you have further questions to me, because our staff is going to be sitting in the audience, you can ask them directly.
That's it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I do appreciate your participation, but we just have to make sure we stand.
That's fine,
Because if we
that's
do
fine.
that, then we have to allow everybody to ask.
That's fine. Thank you so much. Thank you.
That's all. After that's all. We step aside.
Good evening, everyone. I am going to be talking about the ATSP outreach that we did. Caleb right here and took the lead on that outreach, and I want to say the team did a great job.
You did a great job. I have many of these presents. Thank you.
So the ATSP outreach took about a month. We launched the feedback form March 17th, and the form closed April 18th. So like I said, a month. This year, we did things a little bit different from the previous year. So in the previous year, we've had our own meetings, DASH meetings, pop-up events. And this year, we decided to partner more with city departments, community organizations, and attend some of those meetings. I think this will be a really good opportunity to reach more people, reach a wider audience. We had various events. We were part of the city budget bonanza that took place here at City Hall. Various city departments were here providing information, so we were here. We also partnered with Alive, and we were present at some of their food distributions in different parts of the city. There was one March 29 and another one April 2nd. We also had our DAC meeting April 1st, where we presented and also gave the opportunity for them to provide feedback about the ATSP. And then we also partnered with ACPS, and there was an Alexandria Youth Speak Up program that we were part of the program. We were there providing information, so definitely present in different events throughout the city. And from the graph, you can see that the days that we did either a social media post or that we had a community event, that's when we had an uptick on the responses. So most of the responses did take place at the beginning of the outreach process. and we had a fewer responses towards the end. Just to give an idea of the outreach that we did this year compared to last year. So last year, the outreach was for 52 days, so that was the feedback form that was open for that many days and the events that took place. The form was mostly open-ended for people to just provide comments. We did kind of explain what the changes were, and then people could provide their comments. The form was available in Amharic, English, and Spanish. And last year, we received 33 responses. This year, we did it, like I said, a little bit different, so you had the opportunity to either provide a general comment or go into the actual questions. So it would explain each proposal, have a question, and then you could also provide feedback on each question, or just provide the responses. The questions were not required, so you could just talk about whatever line. So if you wanted to provide feedback about line 31, you could just do that and then go to the end. Or if you wanted to provide feedback about each proposal, you could also do that. This year we received 110 responses and 214 comments. We noticed that people definitely took the time to do the survey. They provided great feedback. A lot of people gave more than one comment. So definitely very interesting to see that. The form was available in 5 languages. So Amharic, Arabic, English, Persian, and Spanish. And we were present at the 7 outreach events that I previously mentioned. And then from the graph, you can see that even though the questions were not required, like I mentioned, we did have a pretty good amount of responses pretty evenly throughout the different proposals that we were given. So about 33% from each proposal was in each line. And general comments, we had 21% general comments. We also did a few kind of demographic questions just to get an idea of the people that were responding to the survey. So we can see that there was, it took them about seven minutes to complete the survey. So definitely for next time, we want to make sure that number goes down. The shorter the survey, the most likely like they complete the survey. And I did mention that the 110 responses and 214 comments. Some of the questions that we really wanted to understand is how they use Dash and why they use Dash. And you can see from the top 3 reasons why they use Dash is to run errands, to travel to and from appointments, and recreation. Recreation is mostly like if there's a city event or community event that they attend, or even when they go to restaurants, nightlife, they use Dash to commute. And then why they use Dash? Because it's convenient and it's free. So those are the top two answers that we received. And then as part of the demographics, we also wanted to really understand where people were from which neighborhood they were from. And you can see this is response map. We did receive a few responses from people that do not live in Alexandria. So 2 from DC and 7 from Fairfax and Arlington. And then you can see the breakthrough of the rest of the neighborhoods. There is a copy of the feedback form on the table. So like I explained, each proposal had a question, and then you could provide information. And this table kind of goes each proposal. So line 31, 31, line 30, 31, 32, 33, like each proposal was there. And then you could see how frequently they use it. So we can see that mostly line 30, 31, and the King Street trolley are the most used, and the least used would be line 102, 103, and 104. And you can see the frequency either once a day, once a month, once a week. This goes into the specific questions about what was being proposed and how would that change their frequency of that they use Dash. So specific to line 31, 32, 34, and the Alexandria extension project, you can see that definitely there is gonna be some people that are gonna use it more, if there changes. If the different changes are. So like I said, this year we did a really good outreach process. We received a lot of important information. Definitely there's things that we can improve for the next year. The idea is to continue building those strong relationships with city departments, with community organizations, being able to do more of that outreach through them, and also connecting with the media. We did have a few stories that promoted the outreach process that we had, but we definitely want to reach out to a wider media audience. And then really also explaining like the storytelling. So once people give the feedback, what happens? How is that feedback implemented into the changes that we make? And really be able to highlight that throughout the process, and not just when we need the feedback that we do all of this outreach, and then people might not know exactly what happened with the feedback that they provided. So being able to continue throughout the process, really showing how the feedback ended up in the outreach. Ended up in the plan.
Sorry, Camilla, I messed up your goals and priorities, so.
That's okay.
They're the same because I copied and pasted twice by accident, so.
That's
Sorry, everyone, in your board packet is the correct presentation if you want to look at it, or we'll get you a copy.
Any questions about
Great.
the outreach process that we did?
It's not a question, but just a comment, like I really appreciate, like, I think the results really speak to and validate what I think of, folks have been saying, at least I like to harp on a lot, is this like really having to go to the community and not expect the community to come to us to get diverse perspectives and inputs. So I really appreciate the plugging into places where the community, especially, on the West End and Alexandria, are already going to be at, and the expansion of additional languages. And I know there's like Persian there, and like my hope still remains that at some point we can get, like Dari instead of relying on Persian, but I think it did make a difference.
Yeah, we definitely noticed, being present at those events did a big impact, because it is very difficult to get people to just attend a dash meeting. So just being there, they're already going to a live, just being there to provide information. And the events that we had were throughout the week, some were weekends, some were at night, some were during the day. So being able to be more flexible to be able to reach people.
I think that just one additional thing to think about is some of the school events that happen throughout the year, because I know particularly for families with kids, like if they're gonna go to something, they're gonna go to Heritage Night at the kid's school, or they're gonna go to the like dance or the soccer tournament or the fun run. So that may be another opportunity to explore partnering with PTAs and school to get some things further.
Yeah, definitely look at that. We did have a really good outreach at that youth speak up program. But definitely we would have more. In the future.
I put a plug in for libraries and rec centers.
Yeah.
As well, as great places to reach people.
Center pickup.
I have a question and a comment, but I appreciate all the work you guys did, like Kristen said, it was a great reflection of like the response rate has definitely increased this year by partnering and not operating in silos with other city departments, and if we lean more into HPS and the PTAs, I think that would help that response rate. Do you have a breakdown of responses by language?
Yes, we do have that, and we can provide it.
Okay, yeah, I don't have a copy of this, so if I can also get a copy of this. You can have some of yours, thank you, that'd be helpful.
A copy of the.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
just missed one on that table.
Thank you. So great job overall, I saw you at this youth week out. I was there.
Thank you so much.
I was
This
happy to
taught me.
No, I was talking to the staff behind you, sorry. It was great to see you there with the youth speak up, because I was like, oh, Dash is represented, getting our youth, I love to see that, so thank you for being there, and also at the Rec Fest, I think Dash was there as well. I know
Yeah.
that's not part of the survey, but like to
Yes.
see you at community events, it's like really great to see Dash team out and about in the community.
Thank you.
I definitely heard at least 2 people at Rec Fest saying they didn't realize that Dash was free, and they saw it
Wow.
big on the side of the bus.
It's a very good effort, and the places you were, I mean, you guys used to go to a lot of trouble to plan your own events, and then I would go just because I want to make sure you had somebody who was there, and it's hard when, people don't show up. So going places where you can talk to people who are already there for many other reasons makes so much sense. And I think the events you picked are really, really good and get a nice cross section of the community. I would suggest, this is your next year farmers markets are wonderful to have tabling there. I see a lot of city departments at the Old Town Farmers Market on Saturday mornings and other neighborhoods that have them as well. I think you'll reach a lot of people there. And then looking at some of the comments that we got on the survey. So some of them may have been things that would require or would benefit from some follow-up and clarification from staff. You know, were those things forwarded so people could respond, or did you not know, or would you not know then who was submitting? So you have a way to.
Yeah, they were anonymous, so we wouldn't be able to follow.
Okay. Okay. And then for comments, if there are trends that come out of the event, because these are only things that were submitted in writing that we have. Do you then have, you know, if there's sort of a theme that in talking to people who's providing information, but also if you're getting comments where the person walks away from the table without doing the survey, it would be helpful to kind of be able to capture maybe a high level summary of what we heard at events too for next year, especially in years where especially where we have to give community feedback on maybe hard choices that we have to make. And thankfully that was not the case this year, but you laid the groundwork for when we do have to do something like that, I think, to have a really robust process.
Yes, and for all the events, either we have people from the marketing team or the planning team, so anyone can provide more information, and like you said, also just make sure that we got that feedback as well, and not just through the form, but they could also give us the feedback in person.
Yeah, I mean, especially if there are any high level things, like the board would be helpful to know that, because then we wouldn't get that in the summary, because the person may think, well, I've talked to Martin, so therefore it's captured, but you know, in this mechanism, you're just dealing with the folks who submit in the writing.
And like we mentioned, the way the form was set up, we really liked it because it was very specific, and it really guided through the process of people being able to answer, like understand what was being proposed and then answer the question. And if they wanted to, like I said, just do a general comment, do that. So different ways to provide feedback.
Very, very well done.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Well, while you're up there, Camilla, I just want to give a shout out to the team for also for all their hard work. Also the success with the baseball game. I was down with a stomach crud, so I wasn't able to go, but Jesse gave me live updates from the event. And I think your only complaint was not having a Dash jersey, so we'll have to fix that problem.
Yeah, exactly. If I could just add real quick, so I think it was for those who may have this may have escaped you. Dash did a collaboration initiated by the baseball team. The baseball team actually reached out to us to say they were interested in doing this. And Josh and his team immediately saw it for the very cool opportunity that it was, which is they wanted to do a City Connect jersey. They wanted to do an alternate jersey that reflected their community. They chose Dash as the thing. So the baseball team wore these unique Dash jerseys, but also staff was there with a table, with a bus, talking about Dash. They were announcing facts about Dash in between each half inning. And similar to the comment about, you know, hearing people at RecFest saying, I didn't realize Dash was free. This was more, I was overhearing people just saying really cool things about Dash, particularly the visiting team was sort of saying, you know, how neat it was that we had this bus system. So I think by any way that we would measure it, that was a tremendously successful outreach activity. I'm really proud of you guys for doing it.
Thank you. Yeah, hats off to the team for the work on that. I also want to add that we have a lot coming up, and you all should have received an invitation. Dash is going to once again be doing a Pride Bus in June. DC is hosting World Pride this year, which is a major event. We've also partnered with Visit Alexandria, and we're both going to be in the parade, the World Pride Parade. So you are more than welcome to join us. We are limited as far as the parade is concerned as to how many people can go, but my understanding is that we'll be walking if you attend, but we'll have the bus, so obviously you can sneak on the bus and ride for a while. But you can't be seen when you're on the bus, which is a challenge because the windows are dark. Having marched in parades before with buses, I've experienced this firsthand. We'll also be present at Alexandria's Pride Festival and a handful of other related activities. But this is a major event for our region. And is our opportunity to showcase not only Dash, but Alexandria's welcoming perspectives as a community. Yeah.
Two things, Josh. So one, I'm hearing you say that we need to invest in an open top bus for exhibition purposes. So we need to get that into the capital program. Two, are there charter opportunities related to World Pride? Have we reached out to them? Have they solicited us?
I don't know. I know we're gonna have a table, right? And we have a cooling bus. Do you want to speak to that?
Yes, so we are having the two trolleys and the Pride bus, and then a separate bus for cooling station.
Okay.
We are gonna have charter service for an event that's happening in Port City, June 14th.
Is it the bar crawl?
It's Friday bargain.
Friday.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well,
Yeah, so we'll be providing shuttle service from King Street to Port City and then back.
very cool. Okay.
But yeah, we were not able to provide shuttle service at the DC Pride event.
Is that showing anything related to Flex Work Day?
Yes,
Tomorrow?
yes, we'll be here tomorrow. Yes. we'll be
Where's-
here. Market Square. In-
And finally, I would just mention that although I don't have it with me because for some reason I forgot, and we only have one copy of it, there is a worldwide publication magazine that seems focused just primarily on buses. It doesn't really talk about bus services, but anyway, our last year's Pride bus is the cover
Oh,
of Bus International publication. So we're very proud of that, and I'll try to remember to show that to you. If I forget, we'll be at Dash next month, so I can go run to my office and get it for you.
Oh, so if we ride the bus, we get like a Dash Pride shirt?
Yes,
Or like-
yeah,
like-
if you're in the event, and we'll have a swag table, even if you can't be in the parade, come and please just come to the table. We'll get you some merch. I know the team has been putting together a lot of stuff related to that, and over time, again, as we've rolled out our updated branding, we're pushing out more materials related to that as well, so.
And I also have a shout out to Dash for helping with the NACTA, which is the National Association of City Transportation Officials. It's the association that anyone doing transportation is follows. Their annual conference is in DC this year, so we in Alexandria are doing a lot to support that conference, and Dash is helping us with 3 different walk shop events. They call them walk shops, not workshops, because we're transportation. and We like to walk around and go to see. I think there's like 100 of them happening across the region, mostly in DC, and we have some in Arlington and Alexandria, and so Josh's team is gonna be taking us, we're doing a couple transit themed workshops.
You have to be walking, you're walking through all of them, or are they actually, like a?
Some of ours are longer, so we'll be riding the bus because we're looking at different bus infrastructure.
Oh.
We'll have on the Saturdays, the longer one, so we've got the water taxi bringing people over, and then some people will hop on bikes and do something, and some people will walk up King Street with the trolley, so lots of fun events. Thank you.
That's really cool. We need to have HR conferences need to think more like this. It's a good idea.
Thanks. We'll continue to keep you all updated as events pop up and things we're doing and participating for sure. I think Martin's gonna wrap it up.
Yeah, just very briefly, just again, thank you to Camilla and Caleb and the whole team for all the great outreach they did for what's like this ATSP, Alexandria Transit Strategic Plan update. We kind of got a sense of what we heard, and staff is in the process of, we've read all the comments. We're kind of now working on the final draft. We'll come back to you guys next month. There's no action required tonight, but we did just want to share a quick preview of kind of some of the minor revisions that will be based on feedback and what other things that happened. So the big change, the big headliner is that we did get the additional funding to operate part of the Line 32 improvement. It will be running, starting in August. It will be running every 30 minutes, all day on weekdays, for the western half of the route. So Landmark to Van Dorn Metro. So we'll be able to that in August, and we'll be updating the ATSP to reflect that. We also, as Josh mentioned, are very well positioned on our 2 commuter choice projects, the 135 and 36 enhancements that exist today. So we'll be updating that as well, and then the SID projects as well. That we mentioned. The Arlandria study that we highlighted in our ATSP. Our recommendation was an extension of line 34 from Potomac Yard to Arlandria via Reed Avenue. We're gonna make sure that we're planning to include that in the final draft. However, we want to highlight some of the challenges that we'll need to navigate in the coming years before we do that, including additional coordination with Arlington, Certainly there's some questions along Reed Avenue and what additional bus service along there would do. And also there's some modification at the intersection of Reed Avenue and Richmond Highway, removing some of those islands that will, be subject to approval by TPB, and also will require some community outreach, because we did hear some initial feedback from the community along Reed Avenue about what that might mean in terms of additional traffic. So I just wanted to highlight those. There's still, some barriers to navigate before we're able to adapt in future years. Also had to ask, got a comment that we wanted to, someone wanted us to provide some additional information about the Fare Free program. We are, doing Fare Free fares. They're part of our current services now. And then lastly, I think this actually stems from a comment Hillary, or a question Hillary asked a couple meetings back about how this feeds into our long-term ATV plan. So, obviously we approved the ATV back in 2019, and this ATSP, this annual service plan, is kind of includes the ATV, but there are some kind of modifications based on redevelopments, the West End Transitway being one of the biggest ones, how we kind of implement that. So I think what we want to do is not for this year's TSP, but for next year's TSP, we'll be updating the 2030 map a little bit to be more accurate and reflective of those changes that have occurred since then. So that'll come in next year's ATSP update. But yes, we'll be coming back with the final draft next month, but happy to take any final thoughts or questions or feedback before we come back next month with the final version.
Will it- go ahead.
There you go.
Oh, the line 34 extension possibility, will it include like a timeline of like all the steps that need to be taken for that to like possibly be approved?
You said the top timeline.
Will it include like a timeline so we have to understand?
We could try and kind of give some estimates for the timeline. I think the biggest thing is just the funding. It does require additional costs. It does require additional operating funding, so it will be part of it, be subject to the same city process. And as a board next year, you might want to, in the fall, we'll probably ask you where does that rank in terms of some of the other unfunded improvements. So if you decide, we'd rather do this 34 extension instead of the 31 off peak that we've been looking at, that would be, you'd be able to weigh it there. But I think the biggest driver would be the operation, the increase in the operating subsidy that we required, as well as the other especially. But we could go into details.
Is it generally assumed on the line 34 extension that for it to come across Reed from Potomac Yard, that path would also be open to general traffic?
I think that's one of the questions. I think our intent would be not to open up the general public, but it's a lot because so we'd be working with Tess and the Hillary's team, TPP and the community.
Through Jasha's question, you got to kind of mine, which was about prioritizing and understanding we'll have to have a process, because we also have, I think, some peak period improvements that were in the original plan are scheduled for next fiscal year. The 103, 104 back to 20 minutes is also something that's thrown in the mix. You'll have several things to have to fit, as well as the kind of 2.5 from the original plan that are still unfunded. So just kind of, we should start thinking now about kind of what that process is going to be for us to reprioritize those plans, and whether we want to go out and get community feedback on that, and what, kind of mechanism for scoring these or to help guide us in that process. So would like to, maybe something Josh and I could talk more about as we plan for future board meetings about how we do that.
Thank you.
So we vote on both this and the budget in the June, at the June meeting.
That's right. Yep. The last presentation, Brent Reuter with the Director of.
All right, good evening, everyone. So my name is Brent Reuter, as Josh said, I was finalist, right?
I did. I caught myself. I was like, let me say it right.
Right, so I've been with Dash since August of 2022, so been here a little bit now, so I guess it's time to give you an update on what we do in the training department. So start off a little bit with our structure. We're a crack team of 7. I've got 3 training instructors, Samir, training supervisor, and all 4 of those people have been with Dash. They started as operators and progressed through the ranks. We've got the 2 DRPT public transit interns reporting to this department. And sometimes I get to steal away operators from Michael. We call them bus operator coaches. They're the best of the best. And they help us with the training program as well to help facilitate that, be a little bit more modular. Here on the right side, you see a picture of our graduation that we restored. So in between Josh and Stephanie, those are our 3 training instructors. And fun fact, 4 of us on the training team take public transit to work every single day.
I have to interrupt here and remind everyone that when we did our icebreaker last year, and we wanted to see who was the most heaviest transit user, and you blew everybody around this table out of the water, so that was very
I owe
clear.
that to a long commute from.
I was gonna say, you also don't live in Alexandria, if you're riding Dash every day, wouldn't be in your smart car.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, don't be modest about it.
My most common route would be to 30, of course. So let's talk about our bread and butter here really quickly. We have bus operator training. It's what we've done since we opened the doors, I think, in 1984. So the old structure of training, this is probably when Stephanie came into the department. When she took it over, training was once every 12 weeks. She helped identify a need then that we couldn't really put through operators very quickly. We were really, really short of operators. So they revitalized the program essentially from this old rigid structure that we could only throughput about 30 operators a year. And instead, we employed the use of the operator coaches a little bit earlier in the process and allowed people to speed up through if they came in with transit experience. Because we can give people CDLs, but if you already come in with a CDL, there's kind of no need to waste that time. Let's get you on the street. So since 2022, we've had this new structure. So I think that streamlined training got us up to our full operating capacity now. Which is a good thing. So we don't hire once every 3 weeks now, we're about once every 6 weeks, which is a nice pace for us, and we're keeping up with attrition. 2023 and 2024, our graduation rate, when you started at Dash and you went into revenue service, is about 64%. Those who don't finish for a multitude of reasons, whether that's you're just not up to Dash standards, you didn't pass the CDL test, you don't have the schedule. I mean, that just happens all the time. We run 24/7. People figure out they might want to do it, and then they actually come in at or get out at midnight. They're like, never mind, this isn't for me. So, and what's limiting us currently on that throughput is we try to maintain a good ratio of operator to instructor, 4 to 1. Yes.
The switch from the old structure to the new structure, did you guys also kind of track like quality and accountability metrics, which is to say, even as we were doing it faster, are we also doing it better?
I think we're doing it. We don't really have those metrics previously because that goes to AO's program previously. We do continually analyze and see like, all right, are our operators, our older operators better than our newer ones? Unfortunately, that's a tough thing to measure because the older operators, all of those have kind of attrition out, but the ones that can't handle it, if you will. Yeah, but that's something we continually monitor as well. For sure.
So do you provide CDL training or?
CDL training? Yeah.
Okay, I mean, that's a value. I hope you advertise that as well.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
And
definitely something.
do they have an obligation to remain employed for a certain period of time?
Unfortunately, we can't enforce that sort of mechanism. I mean, as much as we'd like to, it's just not possible.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, so continuing on with our bus operator training, just to point out the kind of training we do. So this is the data for the years 2023 and 2024. I'm including those years because that's the years we kind of went digital with all of our training records, so it's a little easier to push out the information to you. You'll see that we trended down with the number of operators. That's because we got to full staffing, and that's when we scaled back to doing hiring once every 6 weeks. We have some Dash programs. I'll talk a little bit later about how we're developing those. We use some off-the-shelf stuff, and of course, we train new operators on policy changes, new technology like digital mirrors and things like that. In the recent years, we've changed some internal processes about like how we schedule with operations, and that's how we got to completing 100% of operators completing refresher training in 2024. Dash had never done that in recorded history. Annual refresher training is something that we work with Cato's team to see what we need to focus on. Like what in 2023 were, the main points of failure, how many pedestrian incidents do we have, or how many, side swipes did we have? We're going to focus on that this year. So it's now that we've got everybody through the program, it becomes this evolving sort of year over year, responding to those issues on the street. And then for the post-preventable training, if somebody is involved in a preventable accident, they come to our department for a couple of hours. When I started with the department, it took a long time to schedule people. And now we've started trending downwards in scheduling with operations because we want to close that gap to retrain somebody on what that issue might have been.
And I want to jump in and just give you all a kudos for that. That's a particularly important metric for us. when it comes to training. Because what that's reflecting is the amount of time that it takes for us to get to someone who is involved in something that they really need to be retrained on, and we need to reevaluate how they're approaching what they do out there, and helps to ultimately reduce the risk of future incidents, particularly related to the same issue that they may have had. So that's a really great improvement.
What is the nature of that kind of secondary or reactionary training? Is it kind of reiterating what's already been done, or is there?
It's tailored to whatever the
Tailored.
incident might have been,
Okay.
right? The training instructor sits down, reviews the information with Cato Safety Department, like what was the event that occurred?
Mhm.
Why was it rated in such a way? And then they sit down with the operator and say, these are the things you could have improved on
Mhm.
that would have prevented this from happening.
Sure.
Yep. All right, so shifting gears really quickly, to some non-operating training. You'll see a lot on this slide. These are the sort of non-operating training offerings that we do. A lot of this is, or some of this is in-house, a lot of this is out of house and off the shelf, sort of things from like HR software and hiring third parties. But there's still a lot more for us to develop here. Bus operator training's been the bread and butter of Dash, and it needs to be, we need to expand out to other departments like maintenance, the operations supervisors, and general administrative staff as well. So we have some, but there's definitely ways to go. So that brings me to talk about the gaps that we have in our program. We are actively, this is how we set our goals pretty much. Our program for curriculum design, our programs are developed fully in-house, which is done by our training department, but naturally we also have a lot of other things to do. So that takes quite a lot of time to react and develop one training program when we have a lot of ways to go. So we're looking at solutions from third parties to help us develop Dash specific classroom and e-learning platforms rather than buy those off the shelf systems, because we feel that we want to train to a certain standard. We want to use an e-learning platform that we have currently more so we can complete trainings around the clock, because as Dash grows earlier and later service, we need to offer those trainings around the clock rather than getting them in a classroom and limited to like more of a 9-to-5 schedule. So we need to explain those e-learning platforms. Our maintenance training is difficult. We need to flesh out more curricula for that department. And that's difficult primarily because the hiring is pretty infrequent. And as we know, every battery electric bus that we get every other year just changes. Moreover, keeping up with the technology becomes difficult. Same goes for our supervisors. There's some training there. There's a lot more to develop. And this goes hand in hand with what we can offer to operators as far as where to go after being an operator. We have a pretty good thing with our coaching program, teaching them how to be a training instructor. Like all of our training instructors were coaches once. They get the hands-on experience, but we want to offer things like supervisor training to our operators, dispatching training. Like, here, give this a try. This might be an avenue you want to go down if you would like to be promoted within Dash. And the last gap I want to mention is our staff to operator ratio. Since 2019, the operations staff has grown by 50%, which is a great thing. Happy to see Dash expand. But we have the same number of training instructors remaining at 3. So we're definitely reaching our limits on how many people we can train, at least on the in-house side. All right, and so the future of training, bridging those gaps. So we're actively trying to create more operator classroom training. We're really good at training behind the wheel, but training things like Dash specific policies in the classroom, an ongoing process. Martin mentioned it a little bit earlier, but we are looking at beginning a maintenance apprenticeship program with NOVA in August. Should that grant be funded, that would be the first of its kind for us. They would essentially go to school part-time for the fall semester or the spring semester.
Is that a state grant?
Yeah, TRPT. Yeah. And then part-time they would work with us in maintenance, and at the end they would get a diesel mechanic certificate, and then they'd be qualified to become a C mechanic. We do have some low-no workforce development grant money. So we're looking for more sustainable pathways to use the money. We could buy trainings from the OEMs, but that would burn up money quite quickly, and then we'd be left with, like I said, possibly antiquated information. We're participating in our DMV moves working group about training, maybe build squeeze. Those are ongoing, but that's quite far in the future. And as you said, CDL training is quite valuable, and there are a lot of agencies that don't offer it. So We are potentially partnering with Fredericksburg, potentially partnering with other agencies that don't offer it, so to offer it to them, possibly starting this summer.
As a revenue source or?
Yeah. All right, with that, I'll take your question.
Not a question, but I wanted to appreciate that you had multiple slides in here with the metrics, the improvements, what you're trying to.
Thank you.
Just one question, early in my time taking Dash, you would see a lot of times where a new operator would be on a bus with a training coach and being oriented about, I just don't see that as much, but that may be because of when I ride and when those trainings occur. But sometimes as a rider, it was a little bit nerve wracking because you could see how nervous the person was on there. But how much of a part of how much training do they go through before they kind of get in that role where they're actually on a bus in revenue service? How does that fit into your operation?
So revenue service, they won't get there, and let's say you came in with transit experience, all of that, you're really great. Minimum 5 weeks before you're toting passengers. Typically, it'll be a little bit longer, especially if you require a CDL. Okay, but you have to be cleared by my department in like a couple of weeks, then you go with coaches, but not in revenue service. So a minimum of 5 weeks before you need to go there. Yeah.
So do you not have people actually operate a bus with passengers while?
No, that's the last 2 weeks of the program, is you operating with passengers, but before that even happens, 5 weeks just operating without passengers.
Okay. So maybe now the people have, and they may now be getting more experience before that happens, which may explain why but people look pretty green when, this is 10, 15 years ago when I would see people on. So, and then those aren't your 3 coaches, those are people who come from operations who.
That's right, that's right. So I have 3 full-time training instructors. The coaches are operators, they have to have a great like clean safety record, all of these sorts of things. They apply to a program to be in the coaching program. We train them like how to give feedback, how to give instructions, all of that sort of thing, how to operate with somebody who's new. And then those coaches are primarily operators, and sometimes we put a new trainee with them on their revenue service run, for instance. Like, all right, today, can you monitor this person, write a report about what they did well, what they didn't do so well, and coach them up.
And then it's very helpful to see the graduation rate. Where do people typically fail in the program?
Typically, like I'd say number one, it's a scheduling issue. Like they say, yeah, I can come in at 4 a.m. They come in at 4 a.m. It's like, well, this may not be for me. Right? Or, I mean, you might say it on paper, but then push comes to shove for sure.
So it sounds like you're hiring, putting the scheduling piece aside, you're actually hiring people through the interview process who are actually pretty good fit for Dash, if that's primarily, and you're not finding out that, they don't really have the skills or the.
Yeah, the skills happens. I mean, it isn't for everybody, but typically it's scheduled.
I'm curious on your thoughts on how training impacts recruiting and retention. I think Matt alluded to like advertising or, like maybe in like job listings, the idea of their CDL training. Imagine the maintenance program apprenticeship would kind of fall into the same bucket where someone might want to advertise or the opportunity to become a coach or things like that. But then let's say when someone gets the CDL because they do like a flight risk or our licensure, how do you know?
Oh, so you're asking like how often are we seeing people leave that just come and get CDL and
or alternatively just are attracted to the position because they've got opportunities to train and grow and get licenses?
Sure, yeah, that's a metric that we need to measure a little bit better. I report, how many CDLs we get, but I don't know how many people are truly just attracted to the program. Yvonne and I are working together about developing more like better feedback programs, like survey results, focus groups, once people are hired on. See how did the training program go? What interested you? Are you still going to stay? That kind of thing.
How close do you guys work with the safety people?
Well, my office is right next to Cato's.
So like, if you develop or spot trends of unsafety, related operations, is there a way to have people come forward voluntarily to disclose that without jeopardizing this?
Yeah, that's primarily Cato's thing there as well. But yeah, there is a hazard reporting program that they can either, disclose their information or anonymous about, near misses.
Then that would go over to you to develop a training program to sort of ferret that out.
Yeah,
or
if there's
get
a
that out.
trend, absolutely. That's kind of caught in our refresher training at the moment. Because
Okay.
they help us analyze the data and then we build it in the refresher program for the year. And then when it comes time for redevelopment, I can say, all right, in 2024, everybody went through it. Time to talk about the next trend that we're seeing. But it's not only safety related, it's things that the operations supervisors are seeing. Operators don't know how to do X, Y, or Z or something like that.
Okay.
This might intersect with one of the previous questions, but, when we think about the goals and metrics in the board strategic plan, like there's one around workplace excellence, professional growth. Clear how what you're doing ties there, but, how much can you connect training performance to some of these other metrics in terms of customer service index, on-time performance, retention rate, cost per rider, anything else? Have you been able to draw a correlation?
I would say we need to do a better job, like I said, of measuring people as they get out of the training program, like doing those analysis like 6 months in, a year in order to make those connections specifically. But part of that is still owing to us needing to create a lot more dash specific training for specific things like customer service, right? Our and on-time performance, I guess, those kinds of things. I think those would be better addressed in that avenue that we don't even have yet in a classroom setting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to mark, we have now had every Dash department present to us, and it's the first time, I mean, I've been on the board since 2011, first time we've ever done something like this before. And so I know several of our presenters are in the room. I wanted to say how informative it was for us to be able to learn a lot more about, and probably also to have better questions. So sometimes, you know, you're probably wondering, why are we asking these things? But it's just to have, you know, the knowledge of the understanding of how everything kind of linked together. And so this was such a great endeavor. And so I appreciate Josh for ensuring that this could happen. Also giving a lot of you more time before us as well, and to get to know some of you better was really a wonderful experience. So thank you so much for doing that. We have reached the end of our public agenda. I just wanted to ask one question. I meant to follow up earlier for Hillary. We've talked some about the Transportation Commission and the potential changes. Just want to know if there was an update on that.
Yes, they are making, let's see, was it this month that we approved a memo? They are submitted a letter last month. And this looks like something that would go to city council in September, around the time that the board submit their annual report. And so the wording is, a member of the Dash board or designee, and something about a person in the transit related field. I'll send you the final letter, but they have to vote on it this month, and their meeting is next Wednesday.
Okay. So we should hold until the fall before we start to do any consideration of a candidate.
Yes, it wouldn't, I mean, I think September we could consider, you could think about it over the summer, but it wouldn't be approved by council until September.
Thanks.
I've got a question for Josh. I'm noticing more of these Mike Slocum law firm ads on the buses. Couple questions. How many buses are decked out in this? Because it seems like there are a lot. Not that I have a problem with it. And I mean, I am an advocate of that, getting as much money as we can. But I noticed, and this is probably something for Edward, that the advertisement revenue is in the red. Like,
We're still lagging because we changed programs mid-year. The new advertising company has been ramping it up. They're doing a lot better. But yeah, that's been a trend we've been expecting. We expect to close out the year still in the red. Yeah, I mean, Camilla and the team actually provided me a first quarter report. It was looking really good. And we're continuing to figure out, we have been largely unsuccessful doing external advertising on our buses for a multitude of reasons, combined with the pandemic and other factors. But the new firm that we have, we feel is responsive and doing a good job. So I think Edward is accounting for that issue to continue in his year-end projections, and we would expect to try to see a more accurate trend starting next fiscal year. Good.
Well, we have an executive session tonight, so the motion is on the screen. If someone would like to go ahead and read.
I, Matt Harris, move that the Alexandria Transit Company Board of Directors convene an executive session for the purpose of discussing legal and personnel matters pursuant to section 2.2-3711, A1 of the Code of Virginia.
Has been moved. Is there a second? Second, Jesse, all in favor? Aye. All right, board will be in executive session.
All right, you're good.
I, Matt Harris, move to reconvene a public meeting of the Alexandria Transit Company Board of Directors.
Been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second person, all in favor? Aye.
Okay.
Matt Harris, see Beth's head, it's in the way of the rest of my, no. I, Matt Harris, move to certify that pursuant to 2.2-3711 of the Code of Virginia, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters that were in the motion by which the executive session was convened, and that are lawfully exempted by the Freedom of Information Act from the Act's open meeting requirements, were heard, discussed, or considered by the board during the executive session.
Been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Yes, or I'll give it to Jason. All in favor? Aye.
Was that Jesse?
It was Jason. I coughed.
Okay, now we have, now we're gonna add a motion to certify what was discussed in the executive session, which we don't have verbiage for, so.
Go ahead.
I move to approve the motion that was discussed during the executive session.
Move second, Rich, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, next board meeting will be June 11th, 5:30 PM. We'll be at Dash headquarters.
Cool.
That will be at the.
It will be at the Dash headquarters.
Sure.
Jed, would it be great for Jesse to pay attention to?
We don't know the time yet. We were talking about this earlier with Laura about this, about City Hall, but this could be one of your last meetings here until they do the rent after.
Oh, right.
Are we gonna be at Dash then every month during that, or like on Adult Pepper?
Well, we always do one at Del Pepper in the fall, but yeah, we probably can have to do more at Dash.
Is that, they're gonna start moving out of the building? Oh, we need to adjourn, or let's adjourn first.
Move to adjourn.
Jason, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So, Josh, you're. Yes.
My second.
It starts with.
That's what I understand. I don't know what the.
Moving?